It's recording, okay? Okay, guys, we're going to get started right away so we can get my daughter off of here because she's been waiting around a long time, as many of you probably have, trying to get on a live. We had very, very bad success in trying to get that done because for whatever reason, it wouldn't allow her to be added to the live. So I'm going to go right into it. This is my daughter, Olivia. She is currently 18 years old. She's a freshman at, where are you a freshman at?
Baby. University of Alabama at Birmingham.
University of Alabama by Birmingham. And that's the bottom line with her. She's doing extraordinarily well. And I wanted you guys to have a chance to see her and hear from her voice. Even though we couldn't get her on a live and you want to be able to ask her questions, I'm going to do my best to ask the questions that you might want to ask her. So my first question to you, my precious daughter, is how did you develop? I know you have a huge love of reading. Well, first of all, let me say this. She has a huge love of reading. Ever since she was in kindergarten, she learned how to read. And one of the things, and she really jumped into it when she got in the first grade, what happened was her brother was struggling in school to read and deal with his classes. And I went to school to find out what the deal was. And I found out that they thought he couldn't read, but I taught my son to read. Well, after we got that etched out, they realized that he could read and quite well. What I did was I said, look, what I want you to do with your sister, she's just getting started in school. I want you to read to your sister every night. I want you to go over her homework before I go over it. And he did that. That turbocharged her ability right off the bat. And so she developed a huge love of reading to the point where she was able to read very fast. She became very astute at reading. Tell us a little bit about how you developed a love for reading.
Okay, well, first of all, that was a major part, Nicholas reading to me and you telling him to do that. But the main thing would probably be during school, we would have a lot of reading competitions. We'd have a lot of books to read. We'd have reading time. And there was just a lot of interest in that with me because I was kind of a competitive person. And I also just liked the fact that it was something that I could enjoy in my leisure. I could pick books to read. I could, pick things that interest me. And over time, I just do that more and more. And so in middle school, I had, Hunger Games, Divergent, a lot of the young adult reading series and teen series. And by like high school, around 10th grade is where it kind of edged off since I had a lot more work to do.
Let's go. Let me stop you right there. Let me go back because I remember taking you to a bookstore. I don't know what you remember about how old you were then when I took you to the bookstore and you had Hunger Games and all these books in front of you.
Probably like 14.
14 years old. So I take this young lady to a bookstore and she's got these huge, thick Hunger Game books in front of her. I go to the gym. I come back, she's like a quarter of the way through a 300-page book. And she was reading them so rapidly. And I was wondering, can you understand reading that fast? And she said, yeah, sure. So one day I had her read to me a couple of pages out of a book. And the vocabulary was kind of upper level. She read it flawlessly. She didn't make one single solitary mistake. And I realized at that point that she was ahead of her time in being able to read. And what was it? I think the first personal development book I had you read and take notes from was The Compound Effect. And do you remember anything about that book as regards to how it affected you in being able to dig into personal development?
Well, first of all, it helped me because I understood only the basis of what personal development was. I really didn't understand the full concept, so it gave me more of a coherent outlook on it. And the main thing was that, it was compounding on everything that you do. So it helped me understand fully, like I was kind of already doing some of the things that it was saying, but
what?
I didn't have I guess in terms of study habits, of course, doing the best that I could do, obviously, but more of just not just floating by, kind of being more astute in learning, if it's reading or if it's any type of subject. And then by the time it was more, I guess, high schoolish, it was more, I used it more since it was needed more since things got harder. So that'll be the main thing I took from it. And of course, as a side note, it was important for me in college because I used that book in my interview for my honors college classes, and that was helpful in me getting into the honors college I wanted to get into.
And here's the remarkable part about your progression. You started, I think you went to private school, right?
For 3 years, yeah.
You Brubaker Tech. Then you went to a magnet school. Then you were doing all of this stuff. Every school that you've been to, it was always upper level schools. And the reading helped you, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to the point where you got to junior high school. Tell us a little bit about, you got an award in junior high school, I think, for like, what was that certificate that you received? Was it junior high school that you got that, or was that high school?
For what?
Position, I think it was like medical something or other. It was like you were going to be like a future physician kind of thing going on. What was that about?
I'm not sure. I think you're talking about high school, and there was I don't know. There's a lot of different things.
No. You received a certificate, and it was like a future. It was like future physician award or something. It was a big certificate, and anyway, it was a future medical physicians award or something. I guess you were doing so well.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Oh, that, yeah, that was middle school. Yeah, I got that in the mail, and yeah, they invited me to go to the Northeast for conferences and that kind of stuff, but it was expensive. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so now, when did you start volunteering at hospitals by their request?
That was 10th grade. 10th grade, I started volunteering. For the most part, it was in my local hospital. But I met with my friend who was also going there before me, and we both did it together. And then I did it by myself the next 2 years.
So now you're actually walking around the hospital as a 10th grader?
Yeah, we had to buy scrubs and.
What's
yeah.
that? And
we had name tags and scrubs, and we had our own ID badges to swipe to get different places.
So they're looking at you like you're a doctor.
I got stopped a lot and asked questions.
In the 10th grade?
Yeah.
People walking up to you like, hey, can you help me? I'm just a student.
Yeah, I'd have to tell them, I'm just a volunteer.
Tell them that you were doing brain surgery. You probably would have tripped out. But so you're doing that. When did you take your first AP class, your advanced placement class?
Also 10th grade.
10th grade. So 10th grade thing sort of kicked off for you that you're in high school in the 10th grade, you're taking advanced placement classes, you're volunteering at hospitals. Let's go back a little bit, because the purpose for you volunteering at the hospital and the purpose for you taking AP classes, you began to develop an early interest in wanting to be a physician. When did that start for you?
I would say had to have been elementary school. I can't pinpoint the exact time, but I know it was elementary school. I remember actually in 3rd grade, I dressed up as a doctor for Halloween for class. We had to dress up as the career we wanted to do, but it was Halloween related. And I think it was just, I like working with kids. Obviously at that time I was a kid myself, but younger kids than me, I like that. And the whole concept of just being in a hospital and walking around and just having that atmosphere was just really interesting to me. I thought it would be fun. And then as I got older, I learned more about it, and I thought it was interesting.
Okay. So now from the beginning, you realized that you needed to get employment that was going to pay a substantial amount of money for the lifestyle that you wanted to attain. You knew working at a very minimal job with basic money, minimum wage wasn't going to be the way to go for you. They had a little class for you to go to where they say, well, if you want this right over here, you want these things, you need to have this much money. And you figured out real quick how much money you needed to have, and being a physician was going to enable you to be what you want to be. But a lot of people might think that I or your mother led you in that direction, or forced you in that direction, or made you study hard so that you could be a doctor for us, or be a lawyer for us. Was that the case?
Well, no, I always, like we were saying before, from young age was, more into academics than a lot of kids my age. And I wanted to do well because I just, it was something that I thought was important. And as I got older and understood what I wanted to do, it became more important. And, it was just something that it was necessary to do. Like even now, it's obviously necessary, but um, it's not something that was forced upon me. It was something that I wanted to do because it was something that I knew that to obtain my ultimate goal, of being an OBGYN, I have to do what is, necessary, and doing well in school is something that I should have to do regardless of that anyway. So I decided to
It's
go on.
amazing. It's amazing that you come out like that. I'm listening to you. Not like I don't know this information I'm asking you, but it's like for you, it's like a matter of fact. Of course, I would study hard. Of course, I would do what needs to be done. Of course, I wouldn't be distracted by other people. Of course, I would just, nobody forced me. This is what I do. This is who I be, basically, is what you're saying. How did you develop that mentality of not being distracted by what other people are doing or talking about the fact that they think that it would be too difficult for you to be a doctor, or you got to study hard, or you got to sacrifice too much, or whatever?
I think it felt rewarding after a while, or after a short amount of time, actually, and it wasn't at first, getting that first development of it, it wasn't hard to really achieve because elementary school is elementary school, but middle school was when it really hit home for me actually seeing that I was trying to do, good work and study hard, that kind of stuff. But it was just something that I thought was rewarding. Getting an F isn't something that really makes me feel good about myself. So I would think that getting an A would be something that I would want to strive for, even if it's not to obtain a goal, just in general, because that's something that makes you feel better.
But yeah, but not all your, well, maybe all your peers did all your peers think that way?
Well, no, obviously all my friends did because that's the kind of friends I had, but also they didn't. But I think obviously goals are part of it. But I think that they had other endeavors that they wanted, like sports or, social type stuff, which I had both of those, so it really didn't matter anyway. But I think that in order to really understand the importance of study habits and working hard, you actually have to, obviously it's a mindset, but it's also your environment. And my environment was filled with just it being an obvious thing, like it's expected, and also it's something that you'd want to do since it's
And this is interesting because I've heard it stated, and many of the viewers that are probably watching this recorded Zoom, you're going to be the top of your 5 closest friends, or you're going to be like your 5 closest friends. It just so happens that many of your friends also went to college like you. Many of your,
yeah.
I mean, they aspired to greatness. So it's not by accident that you would be this way. I think it's commendable that you're this way. I mean,
My best friend actually was a valedictorian, well, almost valedictorian, but and all of my friends are top 20s, top 30s of the class. So I wasn't friends with, I don't want to say dummies, but
everybody that you were friends with were striving for greatness, like iron sharpens iron, from what I can see. All right. So you developed this tenacity, much like I was talking to Nicholas yesterday about this tenacity for wanting to do well in school. And the way you share it, it's like a matter of fact, like who wouldn't want to do well in school? Well, unfortunately, everybody doesn't think that way. All children, all teenagers don't operate that way. They say, well, you need to have some fun. You need to go to parties. You need to do this. You need to do that. So if I were to ask you, how do you maintain your stance and not be distracted? I already know the answer to that question. Your response is going to be, of course you would maintain your response and not be distracted. Of course you would do it this way.
Yeah, I think it's a misconception that doing well in school equals not having fun outside of school. I mean, that's a total misconception. You can do both. It's possible. It's not like it's impossible, like it's so hard to do, because, like all of my friends, we all did well in school, but we also, we went out and had fun, parties, that kind of stuff. And we still got our work done at the end of the day because it was expected and it was what we should have done. And that's what we did do.
So tell me we've gone over some personal development. You read the 10X Rule too, the book that talked about you want to do things 10 times better than you normally would think you need to do. Well, you obviously operated that way. I mean, when it comes time for you to have an assignment, say your assignment's due January 1st or January 2nd, okay? When at this point today, if your assignment, you have an assignment that's due January 2nd, or a report or whatever, when would you start it? When would you start doing it?
I'll start outlining it next week. And because it's actually ironic you say that because I have an assignment similar to that date. But I would outline what I want to do and actually start it probably a few days beforehand. If it depends on how big the assignment is. But if it's a really large assignment, farther back than that. But I would definitely do, the main thing is outlining what you want to do. I don't just jump into it because it gets all my brain rattled. It's too much information. But I have to space it out and understand what exactly I want to get done in the time I have.
It's fascinating. You and your brother fascinate me because you both do the same thing, but you operate slightly differently, and you have a different pace. And you have a relaxed kind of of course, it's easy. This is what I do. And Nicholas is a little more intense, but that's only because of the fact that he operates at an intensity level because he's a male. You operate at a different intensity level. Just as intense, but it's like a little bit it's really relaxed. So now you got involved with math. Math was your baby. And from what I remember, you didn't like math.
Still don't.
You hated math. I think you still don't like math. Yet you got honors in math. I mean, how does that work? How did that work?
It was, at first it was coincidence, but then, and algebra, but then pre-calculus was actually, more aptitude based. I think that it was me
when
just
did you start taking pre-calculus?
11th grade.
11th grade. So you hadn't graduated, but you hadn't even graduated high school yet, and you're taking pre-calculus that you hated, but still passed anyway.
Yeah, along with calculus, but I think that it was mainly having to just realize that it's a necessary evil because it is evil. Math is evil, and and I just had to realize. Plus, I didn't do it by myself. My two of my closest friends are like math geniuses, and they helped me a lot to understand what I didn't comprehend. So it's part of it wasn't just me trying. Part of it was me actually using my own aptitude and understanding to figure things out, but a huge portion of it was, actually understanding that when you need help, get help,
So, I don't have you on a live right now, so I don't have any questions before me that people would be asking me, obviously, at this point. What would you say, where were you before you got to this level? Let's go back, let's ask these three basic questions. Where were you? I'll start with that one. Where were you before you ever got to this level of greatness, I'd say?
I'd say I was doing better than the average would, but I didn't know why. I was just kind of doing it because it was expected and because, I wanted to do it, but it wasn't something that I actually understood fully the end goal, the end game of what I was doing. It was just, going to school, that kind of thing.
Okay, so now where are you now in comparison?
Now I'm, fully understanding my goal, OBGYN or pediatrician, actually. I don't know which one. And, I know exactly what I want. I know how to get it, studying habits and social life, everything's, I feel in myself is balanced. And I'm doing pretty well. I have A's and B's right now. So and finals are coming up. So
so you're in like the finals week right now, right?
Yeah, well, I had my first one yesterday, but my main ones are next week. Next week is actual finals week.
Okay. So now we talked about where you were. We talked about where you are. So at this point forward, where are you going?
Fast forwarding, like full speed ahead to med school, hopefully in 3 years, not 4, because I'm taking summer classes as well. So those should cut off a lot of time because I want to just get to there as fast as possible so I can get to my actual goal, of being a physician. And I think that the end game is, of course, the physician job, but also having had all that schooling and everything, finally being done with school. So, you know.
I understand that. I understand that. You know, it's average. You know what? It's like I told Nick yesterday. I'm glad you're my daughter. I tell you, I was glad he was my son. I'm glad you're my daughter because I mean, you're amazing. I love you, and I think that you're doing a marvelous job. You have a lot of power in your demeanor, even though your demeanor is calm. It's such a directness to what you believe you can accomplish. Such a directness and awareness that you have about yourself. You're introspective. You obviously have done a lot of thinking about what you need to do. You obviously have done a lot of self-reflection, and you obviously have assessed what you need to do so that you can move forward, so that you're not wasting time, which is good. You have good study habits, right? How often do you study a week, and when do you study?
That's complicated. It depends. I would say a couple times for each class that I go to. I have about 4 or 5 classes, so a couple times about 45 minutes for each session for that class.
Okay, so here we are. We've talked about where you were, where you are, where you're going. If somebody that's in junior high school right now, the parent has them watching this right now, and that child or those children are in junior high school right now or in elementary school right now, and they're eventually going to get to high school and they're eventually going to get to college, but college is so far in advance. Somebody that's in elementary school can't even fathom that. So if you were going to be talking to them to try to guide them, to try to give them some advice, guidance, what would you say to them?
Well, I mean, the first thing is obviously cliche, but it still makes sense, is do your best, you know. Slacking off isn't something that I would suggest, obviously, but you can't be serious all the time or else it just puts too much stress on you, and being stressed out throughout school isn't the best experience, you know, and I've had dealt with that throughout some parts of my life that I could have been less stressed, but you can still do well in school without, you know, putting too much pressure on yourself. And, you know, in elementary school, you know, it's a lot more laid back. So, I mean, you know, have your fun and all that kind of stuff, but also realize that, you know, everything that you do has an effect in the future. And for middle school, it's important. High school is slightly more important though, but for middle schoolers, you know, realize that, you know, it's hard now, but you'll think it's less hard in the future. So I think that, you know, if you don't have to like study all the time, but just, you know, look over things, you know, glance at them at least, you know, try to at least do somewhat better than the person next to you, if that helps you, you know. And then just realize, you know, just figure out what exactly, you're not exactly what you want to do in life, but, you know, maybe something that you're interested in so that you can work towards that. And then eventually get in your groove and understand what you actually want to do and how to get there.
Very good, very good. What would you to adults of children, what would you tell them is the best course of action for them to inspire or encourage their children?
Well, I expect good grades, but not perfect grades. And, you know, go ahead and just, I guess, look at how they already do in school, you know, and kind of base I guess your reactions to report cards, that kind of thing, on how they already do, so that you're not expecting them to get straight A's, and if they make a B, you're just totally like against that. And it's going to like, that hurts more than it's helping. But at the same time, don't just, you know, if they get in straight C's, but they could probably get at least B's, don't just say, okay, well, you know, you did your best, you know, that probably isn't their best, you know. So gauge it based upon the person. Don't put the same, you know, category for each child, or if you have one child, you know, for everybody, because not everybody works and operates the same way, you know. And I guess to inspire them, you know, you can, you know, I mean, so like, I kind of find out what they're interested in, you know. That's one thing that's helpful. You know, if you can help them figure out what they're interested in, they can maybe help them understand what they want their goals to be, you know, and you can work out your own goals too, so you both have goals.
So how important, what's the ramifications of a parent setting the example for their children in one capacity? Like, you know, your mom has a master's degree, for example, okay? And she's into academics and doing her thing, and I have a bachelor's. Your grandfather has a PhD. Your grandmother has a master's degree. How important is it for the parents to have some kind of example that they're setting?
Well, it's probably one of the most important things, Examples are, we're all molded by our environment and, our parents, everything that they see, that we see, that they're doing, we see it and we try to do the same thing. So even if they don't have the best education, you can at least set the example of what you want your kids to do, and if you do have education, then obviously you want your kids to do the same thing. You want them to always do better than you have. So
I'm glad you raised that point, because not all parents are going to have upper level education, but they still can set the example of goal setting. They can still set the example of determining what it is that they want to do and do it to the best that they can do, so their kids can look at them and say, you know what? They don't have a bachelor's degree. They don't have a master's degree. They don't have a PhD, but they're doing the best of what they have to set the example for me.
Actually, I think that's actually a good point, because if I think about it that way, one thing that is as a deterrent in terms of, studying or, schooling and jobs is if your parent, like, you obviously not everybody loves their job all the time, but if you complain a lot about your job, it sends a wrong message, because I know that, I've been in certain scenarios and atmospheres, not with my parents, but other people, and the constant complaining about their job makes you think like, oh my God, this is what the job market, that's what, adulting is. This is how life is in the future. It, makes more of a negative impact on, the mindset of what, jobs are in the future and how life is in the future. So positivity is always helpful, basically.
Definitely. So what are three things that you can tell the audience that you've learned from me that's been beneficial to you?
I'd say, of course, personal development would be one. That's a huge one, since, it helps to keep someone like me motivated, because I can be lazy at times. I think the second one probably would be I guess positivity. That's always another one, because staying positive is what helps you do everything else in your life when you are under stress or duress or anxious. Like just before this video, I was just anxious about it, but help me stay positive to actually understand that it's not like it's a huge deal, And the last thing would be, this is hard.
Because you have a creative side too. You draw and you play music, and I think I've given you guys some creativity examples.
There you go.
And I think that's probably could be the third thing that you probably could say that I influenced you on. I think social media is very important if it's used correctly. As you notice, I always give you guys accolades on social media. I always point out what you've done great, as opposed to pointing out what you didn't do so well. And I give you recognition, as much as I can, so that people know that, hey, you guys are doing some things. So I'm not going to keep you any longer. You've been a very, very good interviewee, if you will. You shared information that was from the heart, and you shared information in a very, very concise manner. You speak well, you think well, and I want you to continue to do what it is that you're doing. You're on the right track. I expect great things from you, only because you are great. So just say goodbye to everybody.
Okay, bye.
And thank you for your time, and you keep crushing it.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye, Daddy.
Bye.